What's going on, guys? Today we are going to talk about a fragrance that is inspired by Creed's, not Aventus, but Silver Mountain Water. Can you guess which one it is? There are quite a few. Stay tuned. All right, welcome to the Scent Bubble. I am your host for the afternoon. As I was saying before, today this fragrance is inspired by Creed's Silver Mountain Water. Now, when we think of that fragrance, quite a few clones inspired by, dupes, whatever you want to call them, there are quite a few fragrances that I would say hold somewhat of a candle to the fragrance in terms of how well it's cloning the fragrance, freshness, quality-wise. And when you think of Silver Mountain Water, you think metallic, earthy, mountain water, for lack of better description. It's just got a very refreshing, fresh. It's quite a step above freshy with charm and uniqueness. Showstopper freshy, I believe, would be the appropriate titling for it. But there's a couple of options that you guys have, and one of the most notable is Club de Nuit Sillage, which we will talk about at a future episode. I, however, feel like this one, in my personal preference, is better. However, this one and Sillage lean in two different directions, and it's going to depend on your preference as to which one you prefer. Some people think it's just a question of longevity, projection, and Sillage, in which case Sillage, people say, is the better pick. I don't think so at all. I think this competes with it even in terms of projection and longevity. This is from the house of Afnan, and this is Supremacy in Heaven. It has had some use case, as you guys can tell, because my fingerprints are all over this. Pre-fingerprints, this bottle goes so hard because it's got that kind of gradient aqua blue to silver, chrome, super shiny kind of look. The build quality is metal and glass. Good presentation here. This is just a lovely fragrance to have on the shelf if it doesn't have fingerprints. If it has fingerprints, it kind of, you're putting it in the back of the collection. But again, inspired by Creed's Silver Mountain Water. And to be quite honest, I'm always surprised with Afnan fragrances how fresh they smell. Afnan Supremacy line, the fragrances have a very high quality to the perfumery. And I'm not surprised in the sense that Afnan doesn't come through on quality. It's not what I'm saying at all. But I'm surprised in the Supremacy line specifically how close these fragrances are to what they're inspired by, as well as the quality component. Those two together are quite shocking because even the Creed Aventus inspired fragrance, often I believe it's Afnan Supremacy Not Only Intense, is quite a contender in one of the best clones of Creed Aventus out there. And, they have incensed. I believe there's 4 or 5 different fragrances, all of which, some clone better than others, but they're all of high quality in terms of the ingredients and the note profiles. And Supremacy in Heaven is no different. Where this fragrance shines to me as the number one pick for the alternative to Creed's Silver Mountain Water, the budget alternative. Mind you, I got this for about maybe $17 on the TikTok shop. I think even on discounters, you can get it for about $20-25 even after shipping. Where this fragrance is set apart from Sillage is in the actual profile itself. Real quick, before I make that distinction, let's hop on over to this window here and see the fragrance before I give you guys my initial thoughts. And I guess to do that, I should have pulled up Creed Silver Mountain Water instead of Supremacy in Heaven. Creed Silver. Bam. Okay, so we're talking about this white bottle here. And in this fragrance, top bergamot and mandarin orange. In the middle, we have green tea and black currant. And in the base, we have musk, sandalwood, petitgrain, and galbanum. In the case of Supremacy in Heaven, we have the exact same top and mid, and the only thing that's lacking in the base is the petitgrain and the galbanum. So with that being said, without reading too much into the notes, just to give you my initial thoughts, where I feel like this fragrance shines is Sillage tends to lean more towards this kind of metallic-y, inky citrus vibe, whereas Supremacy in Heaven leans toward the tea and the black currant, the heart notes. And when you mix that with just the freshness of the quality of ingredients here, I think it leans closer to Silver Mountain Water. Sillage to me, and again, I don't want to make this a comparison video. We can just say clones in general typically tend to lean more on the metallic, inky side. And because of that, come off a little bit more synthetic. I think this is the most natural inspired fragrance to Creed Silver Mountain Water. And I think it's extremely close. Probably a 9 out of 10. Slightly less projection and longevity than Sillage, but Sillage is an absolute beast. So on the longevity scale, I would put this at about a 7 or 8 out of 10, leaning more towards an 8. So what is the fragrance? Initial thoughts. Up top, we have citrus, bergamot, mandarin orange. To my nose, it's more bergamot than orange. And it's a very pleasing, natural citrus, almost as if you slice the citrus open and you can smell just how pungent and rich the citrus note is. Slightly toned down from that. It's not the juiciest citrus, but it's not shy at all. I definitely smell the tea and black currant, and I think that is the most forward aspect of this fragrance, specifically the black currant, hint of tea behind that. But I feel like black currant makes up about maybe 60-70% of this fragrance, guys. If I say 60, then I would be saying 60% black currant, 20% tea metallic, and then another 20% bergamot, kind of sandalwood woodsy. Okay. This is the part of the video where I'm going to lose a lot of you because you guys are going to hear this phrase and it's going to turn you off completely, but I don't care. It's my channel, and this type of stuff really interests me. When we talk about palettes and notes and breakdowns, it's really helpful to kind of have certain things you can point to direct your nose and kind of put words to certain notes that you smell. Now come to this window for me for just a second and take a look at that black currant. Everybody knows what citrus smells like. Green tea, you can kind of, even if you haven't smelt, or not smelt that, but even if you haven't smelt green tea in a fragrance, you can kind of imagine this kind of herbal greenness. Everyone knows musk, sandalwood, and woodsy notes. But this black currant, a lot of people, I feel, don't quite know of. I mean, they hear the words, but they don't really know how to kind of, they don't know what this note is smelling like in a lot of fragrances unless you've actually seen the description. Now, this is where you guys get turned off a little bit because I'm going to tell you a story and I'm going to read this and I think it's going to turn a lot of heads, but by no means at all when we read this does that aspect of it turn me off to this fragrance. This fragrance is a showstopper of a freshie, and it clones Silver Mountain Water very well, but you guys need to understand this about the black currant. So the odor profile of black currant is a tangy fruit note with a very characteristic ammoniac, which basically is just ammonia-esque, cat piss nuance sourced from green leaf buds. A very important note for creating a green, minty, and fruity note in perfumes. Now let's come back to the main screen here. When you guys see cat piss, you're going to get turned off. And when you hear this description, many of you will be turned off. But for those of you who have an open mind, who want to hear about the education and want to further expand your palate, stay tuned for the ride, guys. So this kind of cat piss, what do they mean when they say cat piss and ammoniac? I have a story. So I was in a split housing situation with some roommates when I was in college for a short period of time, where I lived with 2 other roommates. And for the time being, I had to take care of my cat. And I hadn't taken care of my cat before by myself because the cat wasn't originally mine. It belonged to my brother and then to my mom, and then my wife kind of adopted the cat. And but during the time I hadn't proposed to my wife yet. And so she was in college, I was in a housing situation, but for the time being, she couldn't have the, excuse me for a second. Eyes are a little bit tired. It ain't even dark out yet. My wife, for the time being, had a kind of dorm housing situation where she couldn't have the cat. So I had to take care of the cat. Cat was in my house. Now, I thought that as long as you cleaned the pellets, it was cleaning out the cat box. Well, lo and behold, I went months just cleaning out cat pellets. And I didn't even realize, because the litter box was in the laundry room, how bad the odor was until my wife asked me one day, have you been changing out the cat box? Long story short, we realized that, or I realized that under the cat litter box was a pad that you kind of, cart in and out through the bottom. And when the cat pees, it goes into this pad that you then have to take out and dump the pad into the garbage. And you have to change the pad. No matter if you change the pellets are more for keeping the number two above ground and whatnot, and keeping kind of the aroma fresh, kind of masking over the cat piss odor. So long story short, I had filled this pee pad under the litter box to the brim with cat piss. And there was so much cat piss, it was leaking everywhere when I had to pick this thing up and go dump it. It was the most disgusting thing I have ever come across. Now, the ammonia aspect of it, some of you guys might know from cleaning supplies, that kind of very strong, not quite Pine Sol, but just this very almost, when you put your nose to alcohol or when you put your nose to nail polish, that kind of just very brash, harsh, almost minty, but way more harsh, abrasive odor. And ammonia is the same way. It's the type to where you put your nose to it and it kind of just almost expands your palate. It almost clears a stuffy nose really quick, and it's quite intense. So when they describe black currant and this kind of ammonia vibe, basically the important aspect to know about that is this second sentence where it says it's a very important note for creating green, minty, or fruity notes in perfumes. So it can complement fruits, it can come off fruity, it can come off crisp green and minty. And I would say in Silver Mountain Water, and by the way, if you didn't catch the lesson, it's clean your cat piss and clean your cat pads out if you have a cat. But I just remember what that smelled like when I had that season of my life. It was just such a pungent fragrance. And then I also thought about ammonia, just seeing cleaning products over time, my mom cleaning the house, whatever, picking up that ammonia smell. And it also was reminiscent of nail polish, which I don't use, but my wife uses nail polish, or if you go into a salon or something like that, you'll smell nail polish, and kind of they're all kind of in the same arena of this kind of pungent, airy crispness. So in terms of how that assists with this fragrance, if you're still on board with me and open-minded to getting Supremacy in Heaven, which is a very beautiful fragrance, that black currant note is very dominant in this fragrance. What do I mean by that? What aspect of it is dominant? Well, do you get green? Absolutely. Do you get minty even from that black currant? Absolutely. There's an airiness to it. There's a aquatic, cold wateriness to it. There's a crispness to it. And it assists the citruses very well in a complementary fashion. Even though the citruses aren't super forward, they're slightly dialed back, but very much there, mostly the bergamot. This is what I would call a black currant tea dominant fragrance, but you can see how it's very complementary because it can come off fruity. It can also come off green, which has a note of green tea in there. So this was just an incredible complementary tool, and seeing this rendition of the fragrance is really amazing because it just adds a dimension of earthiness, greenness, and fruit all in one, but just has a highly masculine profile to it. For those of you who are wondering if comparatively to sillage, it still comes off metallic, slightly, nowhere near the amount of metallic as sillage, which is what I like about this. This captures more of the earthy, slightly fruity, watery, green foresty aspect to the fragrance, which I think allows it to come off much fresher, less synthetic, and just have a good bit of dimension to it in general. Again, I think that this is mostly an ageless fragrance. We're going to call this 20 years old and up. I think if you wear this in high school, it's going to be a little mature for you. You could pull it off, absolutely, but you couldn't pull it off casually just going to school. This is 20 up, possibly 25 and up, and this is any season, any reason. Shines in spring and summer and warm weather, but absolutely can be rocked in cold weather, and it might come off even more minty green in colder climates. Absolutely can wear this indoors. This is quite a beast mode fragrance, 7 or 8 out of 10 in terms of beast mode. Projection, sillage, you get absolutely everything that you would get with, Club de Nuit sillage in this fragrance. It's very projective. I would say that this fragrance can go 6 to 8 hours on 4 to 6 sprays. So quite projective, quite beastly. So I would definitely say if you're indoors, probably stay south of 6 sprays. I might go 4 to 5 conservatively if I know I'm going to be indoors all day or in a business setting. But again, any season, any reason. This is slightly classier than Freshie with Charm. It's got a little bit more complexity, a little bit more layering, a little bit more showstopper ability in terms of the Freshies category. So I feel like, this isn't necessarily a gym scent, though I think if you're a grown man coming out of the gym, you absolutely can rock this because it would be presumed that you would have a little bit more money to spend on a fragrance like this. But it is step up above Freshie with Charm. It almost borders semi-formal just in terms of its presentation in class. But it definitely is in the Freshie category. Very easy to wear. Multi-occasion, I would say running errands. If you're in college, it could be a somewhat casual take on a date night where you want to be impressive, but you don't want to blow her socks off with, just complexity and show-stopping ability. You go light on the sprays here, and she'll kind of want to come close to you because you have this very unique freshness about you with a profile that, he or she has not smelled before. But again, if you spray this 6 to 10 times, this is going to be on your clothes the next day. So chill on the sprays if you're mostly indoors, 4 to 6. If you're going outside and doing your whole thing, I would say probably 8 to 10, maybe 6 to 10, just depending on, your discretion. Again, I got this fragrance on TikTok for like 18-ish bucks, I believe. Somewhere in that, definitely no more than 20 bucks. And you can get it from $25 and below. I wouldn't spend more than that because the discounters online are absolutely trying to get you to buy this fragrance, and you'll get a lot of deals in that regard pretty much on any website you go to. Final thoughts. I think this fragrance is essential. This or sillage is absolutely essential. Reason being is because it's a Freshie with Charm with the highest class and sophistication. It's showstopper worthy because it's a step above. However, when we think of showstopper fragrances, we think of business fragrances, romantic fragrances, holiday fragrances, stuff like that. In the Freshie category, it's rare to find, I don't want to say it's rare because when you start to spend more money, typically you can get some different renditions of things where just you have unique notes and stuff where you can kind of have some showstopper ability. But this sits at the highest part of its class in Freshie with Charm category. Best of the best, beautiful profile, very unique, very different than sillage. You will not smell those two fragrances. You can, after smelling Silver Mountain Water, you can see where they were going with both of them. But again, sillage goes more in the direction of citrusy, inky metallics. This is more black currant, green tea, slightly metallic, more earthy, greeny type of vibe. Sorry, we had a little skip there. So final thoughts. I think this profile is absolutely essential. Again, my personal preference is that I think it considerably outclasses sillage in its freshness and uniqueness and direction. I think this is the closer clone. I think in the freshies category, this sits as kind of a hybrid of fresh green, fresh aquatic, fresh earthy, but it's also slightly sweet, you know? It's a hybrid of freshies in one, and that's why I believe it sits above the rest of the freshies, because it is not linear by any means. It's very complex, very detailed, very unique. It just has all those qualities you want in a fragrance on your shelf, because it just has so much, you know, personality to it. And whenever you have a fragrance with high personality and like multiple use case, it's like a grand slam. And then you throw the fact that it's $20 on top of that, and it's just like game over. You know, put this in your collection, guys. Do you already have this? I know when it comes to clones, dupes, and inspired, Sillage typically gets a lot more love than the Supremacy line, but I assure you this is the better fragrance in my opinion. Let me know if you have this fragrance below, if this video was helpful for you, and I appreciate you guys so much. Hope you guys have a blessed week, and stay tuned for the next episode. We'll see you soon.